Remains on the city of Mumbai. Mumbai, remember, has been battered by rains. The city recorded a historic 300 rainfall in just 6 hours from 1 a.m. to 7 p.m. and that's led to the kind of scenes that you see on your screens. Waterlogged streets, the subways also stand completely submerged, vehicles stranded on roads, and the IMD in fact has issued an orange alert in Mumbai. It has predicted moderate to heavy rainfall the next 2 to 3 days as well. And given the current situation in Mumbai, the Chief Minister in fact has asked or rather urged people not to come out of their homes unless absolutely necessary. He's also asked the agencies to stay on high alert. Let's quickly play out the first big reactions coming in.
पूरी तरह व्यवस्था जो है कैरिंग कैपेसिटी है उससे बहुत ज्यादा कई गुना ज्यादा ये बारिश हुई है और इसलिए रेलवे के ट्रैक पे भी पानी आया है। पंप रेलवे ने 200 पंप लगाए हैं, 480 पंप कारपोरेशन के वो पूरी तेजी से काम कर रहे हैं और पानी फेंकने का काम शुरू है। और अभी आपने देखा कि ट्रेन भी ऐसा ऐसा सब शुरुआत हुई है और रोड में भी अभी हमने यहाँ पर देखा सब 5000 स्पॉट इसमें दिखते हैं। सब रोड पे अभी ट्रैफिक शुरू हुई है और सब जगह पे जो जो वाटर लॉगिंग वाले स्पॉट है बीएमसी के बड़े अधिकारी जो वरिष्ठ है वो वहां खड़े हैं, वो भी दिखाई दिया। और इसलिए पूरी सिस्टम जो है स्टेट डिजास्टर, रेलवे, एनडीआरएफ और बीएमसी ये पूरी तरह इसको फेस करने के लिए पूरी तरह अलर्ट है।
Incessant rains have been lashing Mumbai since late last night. As per the BMC, over 300 millimeters of rainfall has been received in some parts of Mumbai. It has led to severe waterlogging in several locations. I am outside Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Terminus, an arterial road which is taken up by vehicles coming not just from within Mumbai but outside Mumbai as well. And you can see that this is peak hour. The traffic snarls continue. There are several regions in Mumbai where there has been massive traffic jam. Now remember, this is also a day when the BMC has declared holidays to all the schools. Initially the holidays were declared for the first half of the day. Now it has been extended to the entire day. Let us try and get in a voice from someone. कहाँ से आए हैं आप?
मैं मजगांव से आया हूँ।
और कितनी तकलीफ हो रही है आज?
तकलीफ तो नहीं है बट सुहाना मौसम है, मजे ले रहे थोड़े।
क्या ये मुंबई करो का तरीका है मजा लेने का?
यस, बारिश तो हर साल होती है तो प्रिपेयर्ड रहते हैं हम लोग ये चीज के लिए।
क्या इस बार 6 घंटे में 300 मिलीमीटर से ऊपर बारिश हुई है? बीएमसी कह रहा है घर पे बैठिए, बाहर मत निकलिए। तो क्या आपको लगता है कि बाकी सालों के मुकाबले इस बार ज्यादा बारिश हुई है?
बीएमसी हर साल यही कहती है, हर साल पानी बढ़ता है, मुंबई कभी रुकती नहीं है तो अभी भी रुकेगी नहीं। बीएमसी के ऊपर है, अभी उसको आगे काम करना चाहिए। वो चीज को नेक्स्ट ईयर ये रिपीट नहीं हो, वो चीज पर उसको ध्यान देना चाहिए।
We've been getting you the ground reports. Let's also quickly take you through some of the most defining images we've picked up from the Mumbai city. Severe waterlogging after the 300 rainfall. Like I said, a 3 rainfall recorded in a span of 6 hours from 1 a.m. to 7 a.m. Railway tracks also submerged, which is in fact led to a lot of trains being diverted. Some of them were also cancelled given how the railway tracks stand completely submerged. Low-lying areas inundated, which has led to cars being submerged. In fact, subways also completely blocked since the water, it is filled with water, and that in fact led to some of the people leaving their cars behind and escaping. Residents wade through knee-deep water once again in another part of Mumbai city. That's what this early morning rain shower, the rain spell, has really led to. Let me go across to my colleague Yesha joining us with more details. We've been bringing out these visuals and these are concerning visuals. It's a situation Mumbaikars find themselves in year in and out. Yesha, what was done this time around to ensure that the citizens don't go through this? Because clearly that's not happened. We see them in distress once again. A commute was hit badly, trains diverted, given the manner in which streets were flooded across Mumbai.
Absolutely. In fact, while there were several promises that were made by both the BMC as well as the state government just ahead of a monsoon, all of that promises have in fact turned out to be untrue, because this morning, in fact, we saw that most of the Mumbai was out on streets, though there was no way that they could commute. One, of course, the rainfall that we received, it was this should be one of the heaviest rainfall in the last 1 decade. In fact, it was the second highest rainfall received in the last 1 decade, so that was considered to be a very heavy rainfall. But this 300 mm of rainfall led to waterlogging at several locations, like you've mentioned, at subways, be it at Malad subway or for that matter even at Andheri. Several main roads, including the LBS marg at Kurla, was submerged in water. In fact, several stations, be it at Kurla station or for that matter at Bhandup or at Sayan, all of these stations were submerged in water. That led to all the commuters out on platforms. In fact, here when we were around at 9 a.m. this morning, most of the commuters who wanted to head to office on a Monday morning, they were standing here because Central Railway was shut, the Western Railway was running late by 10 to 20 minutes, and so was the Harbour Railway shut. However, of course, there have been pumps that were installed at various locations, be it at railway stations or at low-lying areas. Right from Chembur to Kurla, all of these low-lying areas were submerged in water until, in fact, 5 hours also after the rainfall had stopped. The heavy rainfall was until 7 a.m. Around 8 a.m. onwards, we saw that the rainfall had started subsiding. The water level was receding at various places in the city, though several areas, be it for that matter, again, for the Malad subway or for that matter, again, Sayan and Kurla, these places had experienced waterlogging all the way until 1 p.m. However, it is only now, approximately 10 hours after the rains have stopped, is where we see Mumbai returning to normalcy. Trains, be it at Central Line or for that matter Western Line or Harbour Line, all three lines have started functioning to normalcy. Though several people who had reached station early in the morning, they had to go back home, opt for a work from home, which is what we see, which is where right now, as compared to a morning 9 a.m., there's much lesser crowd on the stations. All of these, the water on the tracks is also receded. We also saw amidst all of this, Chief Minister visiting the BMC office. He also took a stock of the situation, because not only in Mumbai but at various locations across the state, there are heavy rains that various parts of the states are experiencing, be it at Raigarh, for that matter, at Sahapur, outskirts of the city, Panvel. All of these areas are witnessing heavy rainfall since the last 2 days. Though IMD, on speaking of this very issue, said that they did not preempt that such kind of showers would hit Mumbai overnight, which led to this kind of a situation in the city. Right, apart from the CM, in fact, even the BMC Commissioner was at the disaster control room in the morning to take stock of the situation across the city, and there were pumps that were used to drain out water from most of the low-lying areas. Now, of course, like we've rightly mentioned, it's not the first time that Mumbai is witnessing something like this. This is a story of every monsoon that Mumbai witnesses. However, there has been politics over the waterlogging that took place across the city. Several opposition leaders have gone further to even question the claims made by Chief Minister N18G, stating that all the drainage lines were cleared well ahead of monsoon. In fact, questions were also raised on railways, because railways had also said that they were prepared with all the drainage being cleansed. In fact, they assured that there were huge pumps, or in fact huge pipes that were installed just to ensure that the water is drained out. But there have been several new locations. In fact, all of these years, Mumbai has not witnessed flooding at Bhandup station, but now this morning it was Bhandup station which was severely flooded. Most of the long distance trains that we speak of, which in fact get commuters every morning from adjoining cities, right from Pune to Nasik, all of them were also suspended just ahead of Thane. In fact, over the last 2 to 3 days, we've seen heavy rains at various parts of the state. Yesterday morning also at several locations in the outskirts, in the suburban areas of Mumbai, was where right from Karjat to Vasind to Kasara, all of these places had witnessed heavy showers, wherein again the train lines were suspended. Of course, though there are tall claims that are being made by the administration, when it comes to a situation like this, Mumbaikars end up questioning the efficiency of the administration, and which is where we've also seen opposition leaders question the claims being made by BMC. Yes.
All right. Eknath Shinde, the Chief Minister, of course, says that the BMC is resorting to all precautionary measures, though he has urged one and all to stay indoors, not venture out unless absolutely necessary. He's also personally monitoring the situation and has, in fact, confirmed in the latest that slowly normalcy is being restored. But let's listen into more political reactions coming in.
सर, आज आप खुद इस बारिश की वजह से अटक गए। हमने सुबह देखा कि कुर्ला पे आपके चलते हुए विजुअल्स भी आए। आप अभी यहाँ पे बीएमसी हेडक्वार्टर में हैं, डिजास्टर रिलीफ हेडक्वार्टर को आपने भेंट दी है। क्या देखा आपने और आपको क्या क्या दिक्कतें हुई?
ये तो डिजास्टर विभाग की ये जिम्मेदारी है कि जहां पर भी ऐसे आपत्ति हो सकती है, आपदा आ सकती है, उस हिसाब से वहां पर पहले डिजास्टर मिनिस्टर ने जाने को ना, डिजास्टर विभाग ने वहां पर काम शुरू कर देने को ना। मुझे आज इस बात पे गर्व है कि मेरे विभाग के माध्यम से एनडीआरएफ रहने दो, एसडीआरएफ रहने दो, या मेरे विभाग के जितने भी अधिकारी है, उन्होंने जो जो जिलों में, जिन जिन जिलों में ये इस तरीका 250 के ऊपर जो बारिश जहां पर हो रही है, हेवी रेनफॉल जहां हो रही है,
Okay, straight away cutting across to live visuals coming in from Russia. The Prime Minister has landed in Russia. The Prime Minister is, remember, on a two-day visit for the 22nd India-Russia Bilateral Summit. Later in the evening, of course, Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, will be hosting a private dinner for Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Moscow. But these are live visuals coming in. The Prime Minister's plane has landed in Russia. That's the big story that CNN News 18 is tracking as we speak. The Prime Minister, of course, is set to hold several interactions over the next couple of hours. Like I said, it will begin with the President there hosting a private dinner for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He has arrived at the Vnukovo-II International Airport in Moscow. He will, in fact, in all likelihood, receive a guard of honor as well as soon as he gets out of the plane. But those are the live visuals coming in of Prime Minister Narendra Modi landing in Russia for the bilateral summit. He is on a two-day visit to Russia, both on the 8th and the 9th, at the invitation of Russian President for the 22nd India-Russia bilateral summit. We keep up with these live visuals. Siddhant Mishra continues to stay on with us as well. Siddhant, you know, all eyes on what transpires when the two world leaders meet face to face. It's a one-on-one interaction. It will begin this evening itself. Take us through what we're to expect in the next few hours, Siddhant.
Well, absolutely. Now we are getting to know, in fact, Russian media is reporting that Prime Minister Modi's plane has landed in Moscow, and in fact, he will take some time to disembark, and we have been told that from the airport he is going to go straight to the hotel where he will be receiving warm welcome, as Indian community is desperately waiting for Prime Minister Modi's arrival from a very long time outside and inside the hotel lobby where PM is going to stay. Late in the evening, President Putin has hosted a private dinner for Prime Minister Modi. So there is going to be less work today. But yes, both leaders will engage at the time of dinner. Then tomorrow morning, Prime Minister Modi will go for the wreath laying at the tomb of unknown soldiers. Then he would also be taking part in a bilateral meeting, summit level talks with President Putin, and then he will engage with the Indian diaspora in Moscow. So that's how Prime Minister Modi's schedule looks like at this point in time. But there could be last minute changes as well. This particular visit is historic, as Prime Minister Modi last went to Russia in 2019. And this is after 5 years he is going to Russia. This is his first bilateral visit after getting re-elected to office for the third time. This is his first visit after Russia invaded Ukraine. And since last 3 years, summit level talks were getting postponed because of various reasons like COVID, war. But this time around, President Putin invited Prime Minister Modi to come to Russia, and Prime Minister Modi accepted the invitation. And on President Putin's invitation, he has gone to Russia to hold summit level talks. Now, Russia-India relations are multifaceted. There is a deep cooperation in sectors like defense, trade, education, culture, and all these sectors. The issues in all these sectors will be addressed when two leaders will sit for the bilateral talks. The priority, I'm told, is going to be the payment mechanism. that needs to be put in place because there are a lot of there is a lot of trade deficit between Russia and India, given the kind of given huge amount of energy that India is buying from Russia. There is a huge trade imbalance. So payment mechanism is something that both leaders are going to fix that one problem. Then obviously the Indians working in Russian army, that's a big political issue also back here in India. So Prime Minister Modi will take up that issue also with President Putin. Then we could also expect outcomes in connectivity domain. We could expect some progress in north-south transport corridor and maritime corridor. In both these projects, we could expect some development. Then Ukraine issue will also be discussed, as Foreign Secretary Quatra also during his press conference did mention that all issues which matter to Russia and India, both regional and global, will be discussed when leaders will sit for the summit level talks. And obviously defense cooperation, which is one of the main pillars of India-Russia relationship. The delivery of S-400 is getting delayed because of the ongoing war. Then the equipments that are required for the joint military projects, the development projects that are going on in India are getting delayed. So that is also one concern with which government of India is perhaps going to raise with the Russian side. Then we could also expect an instrument or an initiative could be launched where Indians can pay money using RuPay card in Russia and vice versa can get implemented back here in India. So that is also something which is in the pipeline. But right now it's a historic visit, especially this visit is happening at a time when Washington is hosting NATO leaders. Perhaps that particular meeting which is happening in Washington is to isolate Russia and President Putin. And at this point in time, President Putin wants to be seen with friends and allies. And this is a reason that he went to North Korea, he went to Vietnam, and tonight he is going to dine with Prime Minister Modi. So he wants to be relevant, he wants to look relevant, and he wants to send out this message to the West that, look, I'm still relevant, my friends and allies are still with me. So that is a requirement, that is a need of an hour for President Putin. And Prime Minister Modi, respecting the privilege and special partnership that India has, strategic partnership that India has with Russia, both leaders are going to hold summit-level talks tomorrow. Back to you.
Okay, all right. Stay on with us, Siddhant. A lot of focus really on what one can expect from the summit, what the overarching message is. We keep up with these live visuals, and any minute now we're likely to get the first look of the Prime Minister make his way out of the plane. And it's going to be a hectic few hours for the Prime Minister in Moscow. Anand Narsimhan joining us live on the broadcast. Anand, you've been in Moscow the last few hours. The Prime Minister is going to leave the airport any minute now. Once we pick up those visuals of his, we will be in a better position to really talk about what next for him. But you've been on the ground, you've been tracking the preparations underway, the manner in which he will once again be greeted by the Indian community there. What's going on at your end?
Well, I'm just on the move right now because we are trying to get an exclusive here at CNN News 18 with someone who's watched President Putin very, very closely. And hopefully we should be able to get the person which is going to go across, even as the Indian community has just started gathering right opposite the Carlton Hotel, expecting and anticipating the arrival of Prime. One aspect that Siddhant was just telling us is that Russia needs India on its side as much as Bharat needs Russia on its side. And it's a mutual convenience right now that two old friends are meeting at a time when both need each other. And President Putin is not trying to make a show, but President Putin is trying to say that his resolve is steadfast. He is not going to compromise the interests of Russia. From a Russian perspective, what is happening is something that they've been pushed to out of desperation because of the increasing machinations and the interests of the West to spread eastward in Europe and get closer to Russia. And this is something which, that's the Russian point of view. Whether or not other nations endorse this is a different point, but this is Russia's point of view. Now, if China were to expand and continue to intrude into Bharat, Bharat has every right to defend itself. and it can take a proactive action. So at that time, we as Bharatiya will defend that action because that's the interest of Bharatiya. But war never is not in interest of anybody. 2 years of a conflict of the nation that is the invader, as it does the nation that's invaded. So it is not helpful to anybody because it also puts pressure on the entire global economy and most importantly, the global south. This because Ukraine was also the breadbasket to the world. So food has become an issue in the African nations and also a lot of the South American nations and in other parts of the world which were dependent on the food exports coming in from Ukraine and also from Russia. Energy has become expensive and the inflation is hurting all of Europe. Sanctions don't help any nation, even the nation that imposes the sanction, the nation that's bearing the sanction, it doesn't help. And geopolitically, we are also pushing the world towards flux and not towards peace. So Bharat is aware of all of this, and I think PM Narendra Modi is going to be speaking about this with President Putin when they meet each other later this evening on a one-on-one conversation over dinner. But I think from Bharat's point of view, we are also telling Russia that listen, when you're finding yourself boxed in, when you're leaning towards a North Korea and a China, you can rely on us also to give you sound advice and to help you and the Russian people. While we are also sending a message across to the US, the Five Eyes, and also the West, that don't take Bharat's friendship for granted. You cannot finger Bharat on the sidelines and use your soft power and soft tools to try and hurt Bharat's internal security and its image the world over, while trying to offer us, a handshake and say we are partners together and we're going to work together. You cannot impose your hegemonistic and your ideas or your worldview on Bharat. Bharat has its own worldview, and it will choose its friends and make its friends and maintain its relationship based on the interests of Bharat and Bharatiya. So if we have to make friends with Israel, we will. If we've got to make friends with Iran, we will. If we've got to make friends, continue to remain friends with Russia, we will. And if you've got to forge stronger ties with the US, we will. It's in the interest of Bharat and Bharatiya. I think that's the foreign policy shift that we are trying to say. We're not sitting right in the middle. We are engaging with everyone and we are pushing our story, our narrative, along with taking leadership and ownership for the global south, the developing nations for whom we are playing a voice and saying that, listen, tomorrow's world is going to be run by developing nations. The developed nations cannot use their hegemonistic tendencies and their ability to stir conflict
Absolutely.
to
Anand,
derail the
the
growth
Indian
story of the
leadership,
developing
time and
nations.
again, in fact, has reiterated this and maintained that India has an independent foreign policy and nobody can dictate terms to us. We stay committed to how we want to deal with these relevant global partners. But allow me to quickly introduce Suresh Goel, former diplomat, who's also joining us on the phone line. What's the overarching message for you, sir? Is it that despite a growing convergence on bilateral, regional, global issues with, let's say, US and Europe, Russia remains a valuable partner for India still? That's what many are making of this visit.
Look, I don't think we need to really send a message again that Russia is an important partnership for us. That is clearly known. If you look at the substance of the relationship between India and Russia, that is quite clear. But I think basically what is happening is that there has been a considerable amount of flux in the power matrices all across the world. You find China coming together with Russia, China and Russia converging together. In Central Asia and the other areas also, Russia basically having an interest in the Arctic, Russia and China working together. In that area, USA contesting Chinese influence in the Indo-Pacific region. Therefore, if you look at the whole power matrix emerging here, the best. From that point of view, the visit, and please do remember, this is the first bilateral visit of Prime Minister Modi after re-election. That itself really signifies how important Russia is for us. It will be sending a signal to the Western countries that in terms of power realignment, but I think they also understand that you cannot neglect Russia or you cannot push Russia out of the equation. So on the whole, it is a reassertion of the importance we attach to Russia, the relationship, the importance that we attach to the power equations in the region, particularly in Central Asia, as well as in terms of equation vis-a-vis China. So there is a whole lot of complex power play here. And Russia as usual, I'm quite sure, will understand what Indian positions in this matter are.
One of them is also the Ukraine war, understanding the Ukraine war. Mr. Suresh Goyal, the Prime Minister missed the recent SEO summit in Kazakhstan where Putin had invited Ukraine to resume peace talks based on the 2022 Istanbul agreements. In fact, Prime Minister had also met Ukrainian President Zelensky twice on the sidelines of the G7 summit in Japan and Italy, promising that India will do everything to support a peaceful resolution. So one's also left wondering whether this visit will offer the Prime Minister an opportunity to understand the recent dynamics of the Ukraine war. All right, thank you, Mr. Goyal, for speaking to us here on CNN News 18. Going across to Anand once again. Anand, where are you right now? What's the mood like?
Well, I'm on my way to the Expo Center where we are hopeful to meet somebody who's traveled with President Putin and covers President Putin extensively to try and understand what's going on in Russia's mind. What's Russia's point of view? I think one of the important aspects is to try and understand as a nation which is engaging from both sides. We hear what the Western narrative is, what the US point of view is very actively. But what is Russia's point of view? What's going on in President Putin's mind when he's engaging with someone like a Kim Jong-un in North Korea, when he's sitting and speaking to a Xi Jinping, and when he sits across with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Bharat? What is Russia's worldview? And how does Russia view this partnership, this friendship? And geopolitically, what does it mean for us in this region, in Asia? Because three large countries in Asia are Russia, China, and Bharat. And if these three are not working together, can Asia actually rise? Can the next decade, the next century be of that of Asia, where three nations work together rather than trying to cannibalize each other? In terms of partnership and in terms of friendship, yes, there is no need to underline the Russia-India friendship. There is no need to underline that. It's a given. But how does one work to the advantage of the other while keeping the interests of their own nation and its people foremost? I think that's going to be the challenge, and that's where the criticality is as to how we will be able to do that. I'm going to hand it back to the studio because I'll have to break away for the moment. But Prime Minister Narendra Modi touching down, we should have visuals of him getting the royal welcome at the Vnukovo Airport, and thereafter he will set forth to come to the city center near Kremlin, the Carlton Hotel in Moscow.
Many thanks for that, Anand. We'll reconnect with you in just a bit. Siddhant, my colleague, continues to stay on with us as well. And these are live visuals coming in, a guard of honor that's going to be extended to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Yet to see that first glimpse of the Prime Minister make his way out of the plane, which carries the name of Bharat, of India, and all eyes on this two-day visit of the Prime Minister. Remember, after this, he's going to head to Austria, and that in itself is historic because that's going to be a first Prime Minister after 41 long years who's going to be paying this kind of a visit. We also have Rajiv Dogra, former diplomat, with us on the phone line. Before I take in a word from my colleague Siddhant, let me go across to Mr. Rajiv Dogra. Mr. Rajiv Dogra, very good evening. We keep up with these live visuals and, everyone's left to guess right now on what's going to feature when the two world leaders meet face to face, what the private dinner is going to look like. So optics-wise, it's going to be very rich the next few hours. What are your key expectations from this bilateral summit, sir?
Well, good evening to you. And this visit comes at a time when the world is moving very fast in various directions strategically. For one, there is also the meeting of NATO leaders in Washington around the same time, though it might be the 75th anniversary that they are celebrating, but in their hearts they are very anxious at what is happening in Ukraine. So that is going to be another major point of discussion between our leaders, that means Prime Minister Modi and President Putin. Starting with that, there are other issues which they will be discussing. India's regional concerns or regional priorities and the scope of Indo-Russian relationship in the context of high energy value imports from Russia by India and how to offset the trade imbalance that is consequent upon it. So the issues are important, the context is very strategic, and it is also a test of Indo-Russian traditional relationship, which has been very secure and based on solid give and take over the years, where we have stood by each other. So the signs are that we will be able to take this movement forward in a positive and concrete manner.
Okay. Also want to understand from you, sir, Mr. Dogra, given the kind of geopolitical equations that we see, and more so after the war in Ukraine and how there's been a dramatic shift in the same, do you think India is also concerned that there's been a little bit of a Western pressure on Russia and that's causing Moscow to become increasingly dependent on China? And so India perhaps through this visit may also look at addressing some of those concerns, you think?
Well, let me put it in a broader context, not just Indian perspective, but as to what is happening in the world over Ukraine war and Western pressure to keep on at it. Because President Putin has been saying a number of times that he is ready for a ceasefire, but there has been no positive response, firstly from Ukraine, and secondly under pressure on Ukraine by the Western world. So the more important thing is that why is West persisting with a war which is only a loser's option for Ukraine? So that is another point which the two would be discussing. And India, of course, has taken a, let's put it this way, a neutral stance where it has not voted against Russia in any major way and has silently been supportive of Russia's viewpoint that it was pushed into the war in Ukraine.
Mr. Rajiv Dogra, sorry to interrupt you there. The first visuals of the Prime Minister is disembarked from the plane and is being given a guard of honor as we speak in the presence of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Perhaps the most defining image, it's going to be carried forward in the next 2 days, and this pretty much sets the tone of his visit to Russia. The Prime Minister in Moscow, right next to Russian President Vladimir Putin, and as we speak, he's being given a ceremonial welcome. So a ceremonial welcome for Prime Minister Narendra Modi as he lands in Russia, following which he's going to go to the hotel where he's staying, and there as well there's a little bit of a cultural extravaganza that's expected on part of the Indian community that will eagerly be waiting for the Prime Minister to greet him, to welcome him, as is the case whenever Prime Minister visits any foreign country, any country he goes to. That's how the Indian diaspora decides to greet him, and that's what's expected in a few minutes from now. So a meet and greet underway. The Prime Minister has landed in Moscow, and those are the live visuals we are tracking from Moscow. Like I said, following this, he's going to be attending the private dinner with President Putin. He's scheduled to attend this private dinner with the President a little later in the evening, and tomorrow morning is when the Prime Minister will address the Indian community in Moscow. So tomorrow is when he will be addressing the Indian community, and as we speak, the Guard of Honor currently taking place, a ceremonial welcome for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Okay, we don't have an audio, unfortunately. If we do, we will try and cut across. We keep up with these live visuals. Like I said, a ceremonial welcome being extended to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The next few hours, what we're going to see is a lot of colors, and the first big image of Prime Minister Narendra Modi with President Vladimir Putin when they will be sitting across the table. This time, of course, this evening it's going to be the dinner table. It's going to be a private dinner where the two leaders will be interacting one-on-one, followed by, like I was saying, the community address. The Prime Minister will address the Indian community in Moscow tomorrow morning, Indian Standard Time. It's expected to take place around 9 to 9:45 a.m. and followed by which, in a solemn ceremony, the Prime Minister will pay homage at the tomb of the unknown soldier. A grand ceremonial welcome for Prime Minister Narendra Modi as Moscow rolls out the red carpet for PM Modi. Up next, he will be seen at the hotel in Moscow, wherein he will be greeted by a few people from the Indian community as well. So the Indian diaspora will be extending a warm welcome to the Prime Minister at the hotel, following which he will be seen at the private dinner, which is going to be hosted by President Vladimir Putin. Like I said, the next 24 hours have a lot to offer. Tomorrow morning is when the Prime Minister will address the Indian community in Moscow as well, following which there will be an exhibition and then the Kremlin summit. The highlight of the visit will be this summit, where the Prime Minister will hold comprehensive talks with President Putin. Let me go across to my colleague Siddhant, who continues to stay on with us. We've been repeating, Siddhant, for our audiences tuning in, that the next few hours is going to be a lot about optics, colors, a grand welcome for Prime Minister Narendra Modi before the two leaders get down to business and actually discuss the key issues concerning both the countries.
Well, absolutely. Since we are playing visuals of Prime Minister being accorded with a reception at the airport, so for the sake of our viewers, Prime Minister Modi was received by First Deputy Prime Minister of Russia, Mr. Denis Manturov. Mr. Manturov is a senior to the Deputy Prime Minister who received Chinese President during his visit to Russia. The first DPM Manturov will also accompany PM to the hotel from the car. Also, interestingly, I would like to highlight here that Prime Minister Modi's connect with Russia is not new. For the first time, he visited Russia when Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the PM, and he went in capacity of Chief Minister of Gujarat, and there was an agreement pact which was signed, protocol pact which was signed between Gujarat state and a province of Russia. In fact, there's a very interesting story. In 2009, he was again invited to address the 4th International Energy Week as CM of Gujarat, and he delivered a keynote at the 9th Russian Oil and Gas Week conference. CM Modi stumped the Russian businessman by giving the presentation in Russian. So, this this relationship with Russia is not new. He had a personal connect with President Putin also, but during his chief minister's tenure also in Gujarat, he was quite active, and there was a protocol pact also which was signed between the state of Gujarat and a province in Russia to cooperate in multiple sectors at that point in time. And 2009 he gave a presentation to a business delegation, and they were quite impressed with the presentation. So, those images, those photographs of Prime Minister Modi are very much available in public domain. So right now, Prime Minister Modi is headed towards the hotel. The Indian diaspora, Indian community is waiting for PM Modi to welcome him. They have been waiting for a very long time. And now, on his arrival, there's going to be meet and greet at the hotel lobby. This is what we could sense at this point in time. PM usually gets down from the car and meet people from the Indian community. So that is a very routine tradition that PM follows whenever he is abroad. And today also is going to do the same. After spending some time in hotel, he's going to go and meet President Putin, where President Putin has hosted a private dinner for Prime Minister Modi in his honor. So that's the only engagement Prime Minister has for today evening. Tomorrow morning, it's going to be many events. In fact, he's also going to visit an exhibition pavilion. He's also going to, for the wreath-laying at Tomb of Unknown Soldiers. He would hold restrictive talks with President Putin. Then there would be a delegation level talks with President Putin. And we could also expect a joint statement before PM will conclude this visit and when his second leg of this visit will commence, when he'll go to Austria. Back to you.
Okay, all right. So all eyes on the first visuals of the Prime Minister making his way to the hotel, and on the right side of your screens you can already see the kind of preparations in place. Everybody's on standby, and a big cultural performance in fact has also been prepared at the hotel premises. In fact, Anand Siddhant was telling us a short while ago when he was reporting from the hotel lobby that a short while ago what he saw was a full dress rehearsal. So there's going to be a little bit of a cultural program as well for the Prime Minister as he arrives at the hotel. Siddhant?
Well, yes, absolutely. I mean, there is always Indian community whenever Prime Minister travel abroad, they wait for that day. And since he's in Russia today, Moscow has a sizable number of people from the Indian community. So they all are rehearsing since last so many days. In fact, they are preparing. There are also cutouts of Prime Minister Modi outside the hotel. They are holding Indian flags to welcome Prime Minister Modi. And whenever Prime Minister is abroad, he makes sure he gets down from the car, meet people from the Indian diaspora, clicks selfie with them, and then get into the hotel. So that's going to happen today also. There's a lot of excitement. He's visiting Russia after 5 years. Lot has changed. Geopolitical dynamics have changed, and this particular visit of Prime Minister Modi is very, very significant because this visit is sending out a very strong message to the world that it's not only West, it's also rest, and India will stand with its allies and friends, and that's the message that Prime Minister is sending out. India believes in strategic autonomy. India believes in taking decision what is required. We're not going to drag somebody else's line. So that's the clear message that Prime Minister Modi is sending out. And also interesting, I would like to mention here that after Russia, he's going to go to Austria. Now, Austria is considered as a neutral country in European Union. Austria is not a member of NATO. Austria has condemned Russian invasion of Ukraine, but has not cut off ties with Russia. So, the kind of country that has been chosen for the bilateral visit is also interesting. After Russia, he's going to go to Austria, and after listening to Russian perspective on war in Ukraine, he will also hear Prime Minister Modi will also listen the Austrian perspective, their story. What do they have to say on this ongoing war? And perhaps many are saying that Prime Minister could also convey to the Austrian side what Russian has to say on this war. In fact, I have managed to speak to somebody very senior, so that is also a possibility. So both in Russia and both in Austria, Prime Minister is going to hold bilateral talks, and in those talks, the Ukraine issue, the war in Ukraine, will be discussed.
We'll have to wait until tomorrow to be able to confirm to our viewers what really transpired, the discussions that took place between the two world leaders. Stay on with us, Siddhant. Let me take in a word from Anil Trigoniat, a former diplomat with us. Sir, in a tense global geopolitical environment, the Prime Minister's Russia visit most certainly aims to showcase India's strategic independence and the robustness of India-Russia ties as well. But it's going to be warmly welcomed in Moscow and closely monitored in Western capitals, don't you think?
Well, it's okay. I mean, we believe in taking our own decisions. We believe in strategic autonomy. We believe in multi-alignments. Prime Minister Modi has gone to G7, where he conferred with all the major leaders of the world. He also met President Zelensky. And Russia is our special and privileged strategic partner, and which has stood by us at all times. And we have a very intense engagement across the spectrum. So let them be. I mean, they'll always watch. But they also understand where India is coming from. And this is a relationship we need to cater, nurture, and carry on.
Expectations, Mr. Trigoniat, from the Prime Minister's visit. This is the 22nd edition of the summit. The last one took place in 2021. So after the war in Ukraine, this is the first time that two leaders will come face to face, hold these discussions, very crucial, and they're being watched very closely. What are your key expectations from this visit?
Well, I think that in any bilateral, no relationship is perfect in the first place. So there is always a possibility of improvement of ties and identifying newer areas innovative ways of thinking and handling situations. But since there is a tremendous trust between the two leaders, the two countries, and there is an interdependencies in several sectors, I think that there is a possibility of identifying more convergences in this. Apart from discussing Russia-Ukraine war, Middle East war, other conflicts and other problems, the problems of the global south, Afghanistan, Pakistan, China, all that will be discussed. But as far as the bilateral issues are concerned, I think there is a very major set of areas.
There are core issues that concern
trade.
both the nations, and they are in all likelihood going to feature in the talks that take place between the two leaders. Many thanks, Mr. Trigoniath, for speaking to us here on CNN News 18. My colleague Anand Narsimhan, who's been in Moscow, is currently having this exclusive conversation with a journalist in Moscow. Let's cut across.
Turnover, economic trade turnover between the two countries as well, because we have to remember, right, that between 2023 and 2024, trade turnover between India and Russia reached nearly $65 billion worth. That's, very huge. Of course, Russia and India have long had good economic relations, trade, specifically in the defense sector as well. But since the start of the military operation, really, Russia began exporting a lot more energy resources to India. And actually, this is something that the Indian side mentioned in the run-up to this visit. They said that they wanted to, one of the things they wanted to accomplish in this visit to Moscow is sort of balancing out the trade balance between the two countries. Because right now we're looking at basically $4 billion worth of Russian exports to India, and the rest of that, which is around, another $60 billion is imports from Russia. Sorry, it's about $4 billion worth of Indian exports to Russia, and around $61 billion worth of Russian exports to India. So the Indian delegation wants to sort of balance out that trade turnover.
So let me ask you this: what are the areas?
भारी बारिश की वजह से पूरा का पूरा सबवे को बंद कर दिया गया है। आसपास के इलाके हैं वो भी पूरे से बंद कर दिए गए हैं। दूसरी तरफ की तस्वीरें दिखाऊंगा। देखिए लोगों को कितनी मुश्किलों का सामना करना पड़ रहा है, क्योंकि ऑफिस का टाइम होते जा रहा है। महिलाएं हो, पुरुष हो, मुंबई में ऐसा होता है कि आप ऑफिस नहीं छोड़ सकते, आपको किसी भी तरीके से जाना पड़ेगा।
And News 18's Preeti Sompura is joining us live from Kalina. Preeti, how is the situation currently over there?
Now it started raining heavily across the suburban area of the Mumbai, and you can see, I can show you some of the pictures, like it's raining heavily, and now the office hours also started. Besides this, Maharashtra government and the BMC has announced the school and colleges public holiday today, but despite the private offices are still working, so you can see the lots of traffic on the road. You can see the traffic on the road.
All right, we'll try to re-establish that connection with Preeti Sompura, who was giving us all the details of the rainfall that has lashed several parts of Mumbai, and that has led to severe waterlogging in a lot of areas. Andheri subway is closed. In fact, local train services have also been impacted due to the heavy rains that has led to waterlogging. Central and harbour lines are affected due to this, and because of this, the commuters are also facing a lot of difficulties while commuting to their workplaces. But schools and colleges have been ordered to remain shut today. Preeti Sompura is back with us. Preeti, please continue.
Yeah, the schools and colleges are closed today, but the private offices are working today, and so today is it's a peak hour. It already started, so you can see behind me lots of traffic jam behind me. And besides this, IMD has also alerted few minutes ago. IMD has issued a new alert, and it says that orange alert till 3 p.m. today. Besides this, there is at around 1:50 p.m. there is a high tide in the sea. Like the high tide level is around 450 meter. High tide will take place across the Mumbai. But
definitively that Ukraine was not going to abide by these agreements and was going to continue hostilities against the Lugansk and Donetsk People's Republics, that's finally when Russia entered in and launched the military operation to defend these two former Ukrainian regions that had declared independence and had long wanted to become part of Russia, actually. And in terms of the current position of the Russian government, I mean, it's undoubtedly one of peace negotiations. The only party to the conflict right now that's actually calling to sit down at the negotiating table and have peace negotiations right now is Russia. Ukraine has completely rejected them. Vladimir Zelensky even altered the law in Ukraine to exclude any sort of negotiations with Vladimir Putin's administration. The West is also, not supporting peace negotiations with Russia. And they even made a peace conference that didn't invite Russia. I mean, how are you going to have a peace conference that doesn't invite all parties to the conflict so they can sit down and discuss some sort of plan? I mean, that's just not, that's obviously not a move that actually seriously desires to get anything done. But again, Moscow's position is all for peace negotiations. They want to see talks. They've welcomed with open arms China's proposals, peace proposals, something that the West and Ukraine have rejected. I was on other Indian TV channels discussing this subject, and a lot of your journalists actually said that it would be interesting if Narendra Modi brought forward his own Indian peace proposal for the Ukraine conflict. And I think if he did, it's likely that Vladimir Putin and his administration would consider it and take it very seriously. I mean, the bigger question is whether the West would be interested in that.
Do you believe Bharat should make a move to try and broker peace and to try and end this conflict, or would you want the equations to remain separate, where we as a country, India as a country, continues to engage with the West, continues to speak with Ukraine and help them out in terms of the people and the distress there, and while continuing to work with Russia, who are old friends? Where is the view here? Would you want India to intervene, PM Modi to play a role? And do you think this is on the table when the two leaders meet this evening?
I think it is on the table. It's, of course, it depends on what exactly Narendra Modi has in mind. But I think if it would be completely plausible for him if he were to put forward some sort of well thought out peace proposal in the Ukraine conflict. I think Vladimir Putin's administration would take it seriously and consider it and be open to further discussions on the topic. And I think that,
Logging is already there on the streets of the Mumbai, and entire linking road and SC road is fully submerged into a water. Besides, these trains are also badly affected, especially the outbound train, and the express train is also affected due to the heavy rain. And Mumbai-Pune, all the express trains like Pragati Express and the Seagull Express train are already cancelled by the Central Railway. Besides this, like BMC has also issued a new alert to the Mumbaikar, like if you have any urgency, then only leave your home. Otherwise, please stay safe at the home. And you can see that already water logging is already there. And besides this, heavy rainfall is already started in the suburban parts of the Mumbai. And not only in Mumbai, but the city connected to the Mumbai, like Navi Mumbai, Thane, and even in the Raigad and in the Sindhudurg area, the heavy rainfall is already starting.
Preeti, since when has it been raining in Mumbai?
Since last 1 a.m. till 7 a.m., the IMD department has recorded around 300 millimeter rainfall in the Mumbai, which is very high, because earlier we have seen that around 100 mm to 150 mm, the entire Mumbai submerged into water. But this time in the early morning, rainfall was around 300 mm, and due to this, the most of the parts of the Mumbai are submerged into the water. And as a few minutes ago, BMC alerted a new alert that around in the afternoon there is a high tide. So BMC has informed the people not to go outside their home. Besides this, private school and colleges are also closed in Mumbai, but the private offices are still working. So now the BMC has informed the private offices that if you don't have any urgency, then close your office today.
All right, Preeti, please stay with us. We're also being joined by CNN News 18's Yasha Kotak, who's live with us from Ghatkopar. Yasha, how is the situation over there?
So yes, as of now, when you speak of Ghatkopar station, what has in fact come to forth is that several, of course, there are several parts, which is the western line as well as certain parts in the central line, be it around Bhandup and Nahur area, or for that matter around Kurla, where there is still waterlogging. In some parts, particularly here, what you can see is a bit of the tracks have been submerged. However, train movement has started slowly. In fact, around 5:30 was where there was extremely high waterlogging on the tracks as well. But as of now, when you speak of the central line, train movement has begun slowly on several stretches, particularly some parts of the platform. They've been kept some tracks, that is the slow line tracks and the fast line tracks, have been kept shut as of now, because the waterlogging still continues at Sayan, or for that matter at Bhandup as well. But here, when you speak of some of the outstation trains, they've been allowed to move. Central line, of course, has issued advisory about how there have been 5 trains which have been shut. The 5 long distance train, which includes the Deccan Queen, also for that matter Pragati Express. All of these trains have as of now been cancelled, because beyond Tharne is where we see there is a limited movement of trains. Also, you see this is of course one of the busiest stations. But today, considering the fact that there have been advisories that have been issued by Central Railway as well as by the BMC, asking people to stay indoors, which is where of course a lot of people had gotten to know early in the morning that train services have been suspended, which is where there is a limited movement, limited flow of people.
Heavy rainfall that has lashed several parts of Mumbai. Now, there is waterlogging being reported in the low-lying areas of Mumbai. In fact, Harbour Line and Central Line are also affected due to the waterlogging. Meanwhile, the
CNN News 18 and Federal Bank Primetime Studio.
Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. Have you ever stopped to think about the air you breathe, the water you drink, the very ground beneath your feet? Our planet, our home, is facing an unprecedented challenge. From scorching heat waves to erratic monsoon cycles, the effects of climate change are undeniable. But here at News 18, we believe there's still hope. So we're coming up with a potent solution that can make a real difference. It's a simple act, a symbol of change, a commitment to a greener tomorrow. Stay tuned, because together we can plant the seeds of a sustainable future, coming up at 8 p.m. tonight.
As the world warms, nature's sentinels will rise.